Today we are back in, where are we? Today we are back in Bay Harbor Islands near the single family home section of the islands here. And this property that you guys can see behind me sold back in May for $2.7 million, guys. $2.7 million. They bought this old house, demolished it just for the land, and are building a new house that you guys can see up on the screen. So people got some wild money out there, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later in this video. But right now, I want to talk about a story that one of my kind viewers sent me, Lynn. So thank you, Lynn, for sending me this story about how OpenDoor is just hemorrhaging money right now. Turns out that this whole iBuyer program hasn't worked out so well, and they didn't really learn their lesson from Zillow's mistakes. You know, Zillow said earlier this year that they're not going to be doing this no more. They lost way too much money. They had to fire a bunch of people on top of that. But yet we have OpenDoor still sending out offers, guys. I just got one in the mail a couple weeks ago, and this is now the second time I have gotten an offer from them to buy my condo that I just purchased back in February. So it's nuts that these guys are still sending out offers like they haven't really learned their lesson yet. You know what I mean? We already got one for sale. This crazy real estate casino just never ends, guys. They're trying to sell this house for $4.8 million, and they just bought it back in the summer of 2020 for $2.3. So they want a $1.5 million profit in 2 years. So just to give you guys an idea of how bad this situation is with OpenDoor, in August, they lost money on 42% of their home flips, because that's basically all they do, guys. They're a big time home flipper. You know, they buy a ton of properties and they hope to sell them for more than they paid for them, doing basically nothing or very, very light and small repairs. And it's not working out too well for them, so much so that in September, this month, the projections are set to go even higher on the amount of homes that they're going to be losing money on. So if it's already at 42%, you know, they're getting close to losing money on 50% of their deals right now, which is insane. And also not really surprising, considering we just talked about how the housing market crash is already in effect, guys. We're already seeing prices come down, not only at median price points for listings, but also for sale prices as well. The final sold prices are coming down on a nationwide average basis, according to Redfin. And no surprise, but I think it's funny to point this out, they lost way more money on the hot markets where it should be easy to flip properties, but I guess these guys just aren't paying attention. Like, for example, in LA, they lost money on 55% of their transactions, and then you head over to a hot market like Phoenix, well, it's not so hot anymore, they lost money on 76% of their flips. So I don't know if the other 24% that they actually are profiting from is enough to keep them in the black, but I doubt it, guys. I'm always fighting the landscapers, so I figured I'd show you guys what's going on with all this noise out here. It takes a whole army to trim all these hedges that these people have. So basically, guys, OpenDoor is operating in what they call the danger zone, where they're pretty much at risk of putting themselves out of business. And they basically made the decision for the company that instead of canceling these contracts that they probably already knew they were going to lose money on, or maybe they didn't know, I don't know. But what they're doing is they're basically trying to just pump up their branding. So you can just look at all this as like advertising right now. These couple of flyers that I got in the mail, they're just trying to build up their OpenDoor brand in hopes that they're going to be able to survive this fiasco. But you know, my money is on probably not if they keep heading in this direction, because even some of you guys out there are getting lucky and you took the OpenDoor buyout and got away with it, you know, got some extra money out of the property. You got a fair offer. Some of you guys have told me about this in the comments, and in this story there was a man who sold his house to OpenDoor for $1.4 million. Then OpenDoor turned around, tried to list it for $1.6, right? And then they cut the price every 2 weeks, which is something we're seeing them do in all the markets that they're invested in right now. And then they finally ended up selling the property for 1.3, guys. So they sold the place for $100,000 less than they paid for it, which means they lost way more than that, because after they paid the closing costs and commissions and all the fees associated with selling, these guys probably easily lost 200 grand or more. So, you know, good for them. I'm glad that they lost it, because this is what happens when companies and corporations get greedy. You know, these guys are not seeing the writing on the wall. They're just ignoring it. They're ignoring the current state of the market and just hoping that sending out all these flyers is going to somehow, you know, make them memorable. And the only thing to me that's going to be memorable about it is how they crashed and burned during the 2022 housing crash. Because to top it all off, as of September 16th, their share price was down to only $4.06, which is down 72% since the beginning of this year. So, good job, OpenDoor. Now, one thing I find interesting, guys, is that there was a study done recently asking people what they think is going to happen with inflation. And basically the response was that most of the people surveyed, they think the inflation rate's going to be at around 5.7% 1 year from now. And this is somehow being touted as good news. What? This is not good news, guys. Let's not forget that the Fed's target rate is 2%. So if we're still at 5.7% a year from now, which probably isn't even going to happen, but let's say it does, we're still far beyond where the Fed wants it to be right now, which means that next year is going to be a complete disaster, not only with inflation, but just the economy in general. And everything's going to start having slowdowns, guys. You're going to see slowdowns in business. We're going to see slowdowns in home purchases even further than we're already seeing them. Next year is the year, guys. So get ready, gear up for 2023, because this is the year when I think we're going to see a lot of pain starting from this recession. So just be prepared, because it sounds like it's coming, especially if we're still sitting at almost 6% inflation a year from now. And speaking of the recession, guys, USA Today came out with an article that said that the recession is now looking more and more likely starting in 2023. So they're still not admitting that we're in a recession right now, but I wanted to bring this up because I thought it was interesting, all the points that they brought up here on why this is looking more and more like it's going to happen. And we all know that this is actually happening right now, but nobody wants to call it yet. And by the way, who's even in charge of saying this is a recession, right? Like, I can say it here on YouTube and you guys can agree with me in the comments, but you know, who has to come out and say, oh, this is a recession for it to be official? I mean, the Fed, the president, does that really matter to you guys? Because it doesn't matter to me. I'm looking at the signs of what we're seeing right now and what we've been seeing all year, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that we're already in a recession. So I think it's just a matter of waiting till the election's over and just, you know, admitting it then once all of the votes have been counted, right? But let's look at the reasons why we are in a recession, guys, and there's a lot of good ones here. Now, the first one and the most obvious one that everybody knows already is we've already had 2 quarters this year of negative GDP growth, okay? So we're not gonna waste a bunch of time on that. The next thing, consumer spending keeps losing steam. So more and more businesses are reporting lower sales. People aren't spending as much money as they were a year ago. Inflation is eating into their pocketbook, and people are being forced to cut back. And the ones who aren't are going into massive credit card debt, like we already talked about. People are also starting to lose wealth from 2 of the biggest areas where Americans hold their wealth. They're losing wealth not only from home equity, but they are losing wealth in the stock market, because that's where the majority of Americans hold all of their wealth, guys. So right now the S&P 500 is down 18% since the beginning of this year. So, you know, if we translate those numbers over to the housing crash, you know, basically my definition is 20% or more is a real crash. So they're basically already there. So to me, the stock market is crashing and has been since the beginning of the year. The next thing is corporate profits are continuing to slow down. So while a lot of these companies aren't completely losing money yet, But a lot of the companies that are in the S&P 500 are set to have only about a 3.5% growth in the third quarter of this year, which is the lowest that we've seen since 2020. We have more layoffs on the way and less jobs being created by the month now as we go deeper into this year. And it could be estimated that we could see about 500,000 job losses by spring of next year. So that's only a few more months, guys. We're talking October, November, December, January, February, March. Over 6 months, we could see 500,000 people lose their job. And I'm sure that's probably a conservative estimate, all right? And that would send the unemployment rate up to almost 5% if that happened. Consumer borrowing is pulling back, and we're not talking about credit card debt. We're talking about people going out and buying a house and applying for a mortgage. We're talking about people going out and applying for a new car loan because the interest rates have made it, less desirable or unaffordable to do this. And we're not done yet. We got more. Business investment is starting to go down. Because the Fed is doing these aggressive rate hikes, the amount that businesses are investing is down across the board because a lot of businesses will use debt to buy new equipment or invest in R&D or do something to try to further their business. And right now they're not doing that because the cost of debt has gone up. So you're going to see less companies investing in the growth of their business, which also means they're not going to be hiring as many people. Real quick, I just wanted to show you guys this. We got one house that's for sale by owner here. And literally the last time we walked over here, the house right next to it was for rent already. And I'm not sure if they rented it yet because I still see the sign. Let's check it out. Anybody who saw this video might remember this house was for rent back then, which was a while ago. Let's see if it's still for rent. The next reason this is a recession right now is the yield curve on the 2-year and 10-year Treasury remains inverted, guys. And this is one of the longest stretches that this yield curve has remained inverted for this long, basically since the last crash. And what this means is it's now safer to put your money into a short-term investment than a long-term investment. And why is that happening? Well, 2 reasons. 1, you have the Fed raising interest rates, and 2, people are freaked out. People are afraid to park their money in a long-term investment, and also why would you when it literally pays less than a short-term investment? Makes no financial sense. Europe is going into a recession, and they're saying that Europe is having massive problems with their energy crisis right now because of the war in Ukraine and Russia not sending over any of their gas anymore. So these guys are in trouble not only with energy, but inflation is hitting them just as hard, if not even harder, than we're getting hit here in the US. And on top of everything, guys, industrial production is down because of, once again, inflation and high interest rates. So if you hear all these reasons about why this is a recession and you still think everything is fine, I mean, you got to get checked, because there's no way that everything is fine right now, guys. And there's no way that we can just come out of this whole thing completely unscathed. It's not going to happen. There has to be some repercussions and some pain felt from this total financial and really global disaster that's going on right now. So I think there's nowhere in the world that you can live right now that is going to come out of this thing unscathed. In some way or another, you're going to feel the effects of this recession. And it's not just USA Today who's saying this. Dr. Doom, who is Nouriel Roubani, is saying that this is definitely going to be a really bad recession, and it's going to be global, just like we talked about. And one of the main reasons for this is debt, guys. He saw back in the 2008 financial crisis how much debt was being mismanaged, and it helped lead to that crisis. And this time around, our country, our government, the Fed has not learned their lesson with managing this debt. And now we have more debt than ever before. The national debt is, at an all-time high at a time when interest rates are exploding. So this is also going to hurt our federal government when it comes time for them to pay off their bills as well, right? We were talking about the other day how your credit card interest rates are going to go up. All these rates for everything you borrow against is going up. Well, that holds true for the federal government as well, and every other national government, because all the governments work off of debt nowadays. Nobody has any money, guys. Everybody is just working off of invisible funny money, and that is what's leading to this crazy financial crisis that we're in right now. But of course, not everybody's being affected by this equally. In fact, here in Miami-Dade, the commissioners recently just voted to double their salaries. Big surprise, right? These guys are going from making 60 grand a year to now $138,000 a year. That's the pay raise that they voted to give themselves, and it's no big surprise that we're seeing these big hikes in property taxes. Now we know where a lot of that money's going. So everything is just corrupt right now. I mean, who out there watching this video is getting a double increase in their pay right now? Just anybody tell me if you're getting that, because I don't think any regular people are getting this. Politicians know that regular people are hurting, and they're crying that 60 grand's not enough, now they need 140. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, even people that work regular jobs that they went to college for 4-year degrees sometimes don't even make 60 grand a year. And these guys are crying that's not enough money, we need double. Yet all the residents here in Miami are going to be paying for that through our property taxes, of course. And then look at the contrast between people like this that are getting that are doubling their pay, and they're deciding to double their pay also. It's not like all the voters said, yeah, let's give them double. We all want them to make more money. 71% of employees surveyed right now are saying that they are having money-related stress that's negatively impacting not only their work life, but their personal life as well. So on the one side of the table, you got politicians doubling their pay out of our tax dollars, and regular employees worried about how they're going to pay their rent next month, or pay the electric bill, or make the car payment. And this is when divorces start piling up, because that's the number one thing that couples fight about and end up getting divorced about, is disagreements on money, or stress from money. And these people who were surveyed are saying that they're cutting way back on not only the amount that they're saving, but also the amount that they're investing into their 401ks and their future. So this is bad news for regular employees, because even 84% of human resource leaders that they surveyed in this same study said that they're worried that personal financial issues are affecting their employees' productivity. So having all these money problems just has a ripple effect across society in so many different ways, guys. And my concern is that we haven't even seen the surface of this yet, because only right now are people starting to really feel the pain from this recession, and the layoffs are on the way. So how is this all going to look in a year from now, especially if we still have 6% inflation? And the reason why this scares me is because this is the time when people should be saving the most and preparing for their future the most, when things are looking uncertain. But yet most people are doing exactly the opposite, because 26% said they've cut back on paying down their debt, which means they're probably paying less on their credit card bills, or maybe even racking up more debt. No surprise there. 25% say they're reducing their long-term savings, which is just socking a little money away for a rainy day. 19% say they're cutting back on their health savings account, which is basically your emergency fund for medical in the future. And 13% say that they're reducing their contributions to a college saving fund. So all you would-be college kids out there, get ready to pay your own way, because probably mom and dad aren't going to be able to do it. If you guys enjoyed this video and you found it entertaining, please subscribe to the channel. Check out my next video on the screen right over here, and I'll see you over in the next one.